If you're looking for alternatives to Bob Ross brushes, I think I may have found them for you. Here we go. We have two sets of brushes here. Both sets include a 1-inch and a 2-inch brush, pretty much the basics of what you need to complete a wet-on-wet style painting or any Bob Ross style painting out there. However, what differentiates them is one is a pure bristle brush from Hobby Lobby, and then the other set is a full synthetic bristle from Masters Touch. And I want to see if these would be good replacements for any Bob Ross style brush out there. Now I put them to the test and got a spare canvas. On one side, I'm going to use nothing but the full synthetic brushes. And on the other side, I'm going to use the natural bristle brushes. When it comes to applying a liquid medium base or grounding of color, both brushes worked fantastic here. They moved the liquid base around easily and got an even application. However, when it came to the synthetic brushes, since the bristles are firm, they are also springy, which means it can flick color in liquid base, so make sure you're careful here. When we move on to creating a sky, which essentially is applying color and pulling down color to create a beautiful gradient, again, both brushes did well. When it comes to the synthetic, since the bristles are firm, it's way easy to move the paint without any struggle. You simply just pull the color down and then blend it in with a 2-inch brush and then fade it to what you want. When it comes to the natural bristle brushes, it takes a little more effort since the bristles are softer. You have to put a little more pressure and be a little more diligent on how you apply color. Since the bristles are soft, they can hide color within the bristles, so you want to make sure you have an even application when you're applying. But again, both did fantastic here. So what about when you have to start blending colors together? On the synthetic side, it's extremely easy, but does become a little more difficult when the colors actually start to meet. If you're not used to firm bristles, you need to have an extremely light touch. Otherwise, you're going to start pulling color into sections that you don't want and it'll start overtaking, and it's very hard to get back until you add more color or make some slight changes. When it comes to the natural bristle brush side, it's extremely easy due to the soft hairs that can bend, and you can have an extremely light touch. So when you start to pull two colors together, you just gingerly blend them together and it looks silky smooth. Moving on to adding a layer or an asset like a cloud. When it comes to the synthetic side, it's extremely easy to tap in a basic shape of a cloud. However, you will struggle a little bit due to the synthetic hairs because essentially they're made out of plastic, of when you have to blend because of the dense pocket of hairs, when you have to lift the cloud up because the hairs will cut through the cloud, and when you try to even it out because those plastic hairs can and may slice through the paint, exposing the under layers of paint. So again, you need to have an extremely soft touch here. When it comes to the natural bristle brushes, it's a little harder to form a basic shape because the bristles are so soft, but it's still easy to do. But it's super clutch when it comes into blending because again, the bristles are soft, lifting a cloud, again, because the bristles are soft, and evening out the cloud, again, because the bristles are soft. All right, moving on to everybody's favorite, and that's shapes and structures, essentially something like a bush. On the synthetic side, it's extremely easy. Due to all those dense hairs that are tightly packed together, it's easy to simply tap in a shape. The nice thing about the synthetic side is since they are tight together, you can make a more clean shape if you want, or you can make something that's more asymmetrical if that's the style that you're going for. On the natural bristle side, it's pretty much the opposite. Since the hairs are more frayed and random, you get a more natural look to your shape if that's what you're going for. Yeah, you can easily tap it in, but it's gonna be a little more random, which could be a cool effect if you're going for that, but keep that in mind. One of the hardest parts when it comes to painting is highlights. On the synthetic side, it's not too difficult, but it is a little more difficult due to the pocket of dense hairs that are on the brush. You basically have to apply slightly above your bush because if you push too hard on the layers underneath, those firm bristles will push through, making it hard for the paint to stick on, and you can become a mud mixer. The nice thing is yeah, you get to maintain and keep those nice, round, clean shapes, and yeah, you can make something more asymmetrical. I personally noticed it was a little harder to pull my highlights down into my bush to create a natural gradient as if the sunlight was fading in. So please keep that in mind because again, that's due to all the dense pocket of hairs in the bristles. On the natural bristle brush side, it's super easy to apply highlights due to the fact that the hairs on the brush are so flexible and soft. You simply just lightly tap and the paint sticks. You also get the added benefit of a more randomized look or a more natural look to your bush or whatever you're trying to accomplish. Something I personally like. I also want to state that if you have a nice flexible paint, it's way easier to create thicker textures of highlights on top of layers with the softer bristle brush. Yeah, you can do it with the synthetic, but man, you need to practice that a lot. On the natural bristle brush, it's a lot easier. So what's good and bad about these brushes? Well, let's start with the synthetic brushes first from Master Touch. The pros about the synthetic Master Touch brushes are it does hold its shape extremely well. It's also very easy to clean, and the hairs do not fray over time. They are great for creating clustered shapes if you're into that style, and it has a unique handle that some might find more comfortable. When it comes to the bad, it does have springy hairs that can flick paint, so be careful. You also need to remember that synthetic hairs can cut through paint layers sometimes. So again, be careful. The dense pocket of bristles can make it difficult to make slight adjustments in your painting. So again, be careful. So what's good about the natural bristle brushes from Hobby Lobby? They do give you a nice light touch when you're painting. This makes it easier to move paint around and blend it if you just want to make slight adjustments. It also gives you a more natural look to your shapes if you're going for that style. You can also easily apply highlights with just the lightest bit of pressure, which is really nice. And the flat handle is surprisingly comfortable. So what's bad about it? Well, you can lose hairs quickly on it. It's a little harder to clean. The brush will fray over time and will need constant conditioning when you're done using it. And the brush may only last about 1 to 2 years from research that I was able to do online, and I saw other people commenting on this. So the big question is, so which one should you get? Well, to me, it really comes down to style and feel. It depends on what style you're going for. If you want to have a more natural or random look within your environment of the landscape you're building, then I would say go with the natural bristle brushes. If you want something that's a little more symmetrical or you have more control with the clusters and shapes that you're trying to build, then I would say go for the full synthetic brushes. But you also have to remember feel. I like it when my brush feels firm sometimes for when I'm pulling paint down or blending it in certain directions or trying to remove paint to create awesome gradients. Again, I would go with the synthetics there. However, I also love soft bristle brushes at times too, for when I have to make slight adjustments in my colors, build clouds, or especially put on highlights on anything within my layers. Then I would go the natural bristle brushes. So which one am I picking? Well, to be honest, I would just say go with all of them, believe it or not. All of these brushes right here cost me less than $2. For $8, you're gonna get 4 brushes, and that's less than 1 Bob Ross brush, and that's gonna make a great alternative that you can play around with and see what you like most. And you can do me a favor, I don't think I make a commission on these ones because they're from Hobby Lobby, but still, I did you a favor and put links down below. If they do help me out, that's awesome. If not, I'm glad I can help you out. Now, if these are comparing against Bob Ross brushes, I still think that Bob Ross brushes are still the best because they lay right in the middle. They're slightly soft, they're slightly firm, you can control the hairs, they hold up well. So I would still recommend getting at least 1 Bob Ross brush so that way you can see what it's like, but I'm still on the hunt for some really good alternatives, but this is a great starting point. And if you want to help me, you can watch some of the videos over to my side where I show you how to paint awesome and amazing things. Plus, you know what? You might as well go down below, leave me a comment, and while you're down there, hit subscribe and leave me an awesome thumbs up. I'll catch you all in the next one. And as always, trying to find you some cool buys. So help support me and I'll help support you. Bye.